It's that time of year again. No, not the holidays. Though, yes, it is also that. 'Tis the season. I'm talking about report cards, baby. That magical time where I look back at everything Apple has shipped over the past 12 months and assign letter grades so that you can feel like a disappointed parent at parent-teacher conference. 2025 was interesting. Not transformative, not disastrous, interesting. I mean, on one hand, the hardware story is genuinely strong. The iPhone Air exists, which feels like Apple has finally remembered what it means to be courageous. The Mac lineup is also firing on all cylinders, but the software is where things get uncomfortable. macOS Tahoe is the buggiest piece of crap I've used in years. Liquid glass has divided the internet, and platforms that desperately needed attention, like Vision OS's emaciated app ecosystem, got basically none. So let's do this. Every major product line, every major software platform, letter grades for all of it. And then at the end, Apple's overall 2025 GPA. Spoiler alert, they are not making the dean's list, but they're also not on academic probation either. Let's get into it. The Mac lineup is arguably as strong as it's ever been, which makes it all the more frustrating that Apple seems content to let certain parts of it collect dust. But we'll get to that. Let's start with the good. The M5 MacBook Pro is a genuine leap, not the incremental tick-tock we've grown accustomed to, but a meaningful jump in both CPU and primarily this year GPU performance. There's also a new neural engine, which is ridiculous, and many previously Pro-only features like media engines have trickled down to the base M5. And for the first time in a while, that base MacBook Pro, it doesn't feel like a corporate purchasing checkbox. It is actually a good machine worth buying. The M4 MacBook Air, meanwhile, has become one of the most compelling laptops at any price, assuming you catch it on sale, which you probably can. At $700 with 16 gigs of RAM, it is absurd, especially with current RAM pricing. It's one of the fastest single-core chips in the world in a full laptop with 16 gigs for less than most people spend on a phone. Now, yes, the thermal throttling situation has gotten worse. Under sustained load, the thing drops to just 9 watts, and it's the first Apple Silicon laptop where the palm rests, they get noticeably warm during casual use. But for most tasks, the M4 is so fast that it just finishes them before the thermals even become an issue. The real problem with the MacBook Air is it's existential. Now that the iPhone Air has reintroduced the thin and cutting-edge narrative to the Air brand name, well, the MacBook Air, by contrast, just feels generic. It's like the Honda Accord of laptops. Excellent, dependable, but utterly devoid of personality. Now, the Mac Mini remains untouched from last year's M4 refresh, and honestly, that's fine. It's probably still the best non-laptop computer that Apple sells, and when you pair it with a decent 4K OLED monitor, maybe you've got a killer setup under $1,000. Now, by contrast, the Mac Studio did get upgraded, but kind of awkwardly. It got the M4 Max and the M3 Ultra 2 generations back yet again, which is a technically impressive machine. Yet again, 2 fused Max chips, but it is starting to highlight a really uncomfortable truth, and that's that Apple's chiplet dreams that they had originally had for M1 are continuing to die. I mean, that M1 Extreme that was going to be 2 Ultras fused together, that never happened, and that's continuing to seem even more like a pipe dream. Leading up to this chip, there were rumors everywhere that it was going to be monolithic because they just couldn't get the yields, and that's increasingly the case with pretty much all of their silicon. They're moving to specific chips for both the standard M5 and M5 Pro and Max, presumably. And so it's not going to happen where we have this monster chip. And while I will say that 512 gigs on these machines with unified memory can be transformative, particularly for machine learning workloads, the GPU architecture is just now 2 generations behind their other standard laptops. And frankly, the iPad Pro, I mean, your very expensive workstation has less advanced graphics silicon than a tablet. It's logical, but it's also kind of silly. And then there's everything Apple didn't update, right? The Mac Pro remains stranded on M2, approaching its 3rd birthday with no update in sight. The iMac's 4K display still uses a single backlight zone in 2025, and it's only 24 inches. That's smaller than the Studio Display and Pro Display XDR continue their slow march towards irrelevance. And for a company that makes some of the best laptop displays in the industry, Apple's desktop monitor situation is genuinely embarrassing. So the final grade for the Mac, B+. The machines that got updated are excellent, and the machines that didn't, well, they're becoming harder to recommend. What isn't hard to recommend is today's sponsor. And let me tell you why, because this is genuinely a story that is true, that Anker cannot pay me to say. Their Prime Power Bank has become our favorite thing in our house. We've been using the 27K model daily for over a year. We charge everything with it. Our laptops at the dining room table, we top off our phones in the bathroom, we juice up the Apple TV remote by the couch, dead meat thermometer in the kitchen, power bank. Now that everything's USB-C, we just don't think about plugs anymore. It's genuine genuinely changed how we live our lives. And the new Anker Prime Power Bank 20K with 220 watts total output is even better because it's smaller than a soda can, but it still packs serious capacity. Each USB-C port is capable of delivering a full 140 watts with no derating. So you can fast charge a 16-inch MacBook Pro at full speed, and recharging the bank itself takes just 35 minutes to hit 80%. But here is what is so awesome: the Anker Prime charging base. You drop the power bank on top, and it wirelessly recharges at 100 watts via pogo pins. No cables, no thinking, it just goes. Now, the base also has 3 additional USB ports for powering everything else on your desk. But this isn't just about being strapped to a desk. You can take this battery everywhere. It's TSA safe, so you can go on airplanes, you can go to the park. I use it everywhere. It is an ecosystem that actually works where it, I don't even know what to say. It works everywhere. I love it. This thing is fantastic. The link is in the description. Now, back to the report cards. This was a good year for the iPhone. A great year. Because on one hand, Apple took genuine risk with the iPhone Air, but then delivered the most solid base model phone we've had in years with the 17. And even the budget 16e, which did release this year, turned out to be quite the success story. So let's start with that phone. The phone everyone dunked on, the iPhone 16e. And I get it. Look, on paper, it is indefensible. 60 hertz display, a single camera, a notch instead of the dynamic island, and 128 gigs of storage for $600. Are you nuts? Tech Twitter had a field day. And yet, the 16e became the 4th best-selling phone globally in Q3 2025. Not the 4th best-selling iPhone, the 4th best-selling phone, period. Ahead of Samsung's entire Galaxy A lineup, ahead of the entire Chinese market. It turns out the stuff that actually matters to real humans, like nearly the same primary camera as flagship iPhones, an A18 chip that never misses a beat, and battery life that still leads the industry thanks to Apple's C1 modem, that's the stuff that resonates more than spec sheet bragging rights like high refresh rate. Who would have thought? Me. I've been saying that for years. However, the iPhone 17 is the one that almost everyone should buy because for the first time in years, that gap between the base and the Pro has narrowed to almost nothing. It's an insane value. You've got the same display, the exact same display with ProMotion and always on, the same refresh rate. It's the identical panel. And then the primary camera differences are minor enough that really only professionals will notice. Frankly, the only meaningful distinction, in my opinion, is RAM. 8 gigs versus 12 on the Pro, which will matter eventually, make no mistake, but not today. And at its price point, the 17 is simply just the correct choice for most people. Now, the 17 Pro is iterative in the best and worst senses. The highlight for me is the 4x telephoto camera. It is exceptional. Even the 8x digital crop is honestly quite nice. Whenever my wife and I are together, I reach for her phone camera every time, and the pictures it has produced are exceptional. But the switch from titanium to aluminum, it honestly feels like a downgrade in the hand. I understand why they did it, thermals. But these might be the slipperiest iPhones ever made. My wife dropped hers twice in the first week waiting for her case, and she never drops her phone. I dropped a display model in the Apple Store on the first day. Whoops. The anodization is chipping away. They're denting on the sides. They don't feel quite as premium. Really, I think the best update to the Pro phones this year is that new squared front-facing camera sensor that eliminates rotation requirements. But guess what? That's not a Pro feature. It's available across the entire lineup. And so I guess that brings us to the iPhone Air. My daily driver since day one, since September 2025. My favorite iPhone since the iPhone 10. And I cannot logically defend it, okay? It's got one camera, merely adequate battery life, a single speaker that honestly sounds like butt. It throttles under load and under the sun, and well, it costs more than the iPhone 17 while offering less on paper. Sales are reportedly abysmal, probably worse than the Mini and Plus models that it spiritually replaces, but it is objectively an amazing phone, despite it objectively being the worst value in the iPhone lineup. I love it. I can't stop using it. The thinness, it hasn't worn off. Now, I have stopped marveling at it. Like, I don't pick it up and go, oh my gosh, this is so thin. It's just become normal. But whenever I pick up my wife's iPhone Pro or any other phone, they feel preposterously and needlessly huge. The screen size that I thought was beyond my limit apparently wasn't. Turns out I can handle a bigger display if the phone is thin enough for me to actually grip it comfortably. And then Apple's C1 modem delivers excellent connectivity and efficiency. And the battery life vastly exceeds, by consequence, what you would expect from something this thin. Now, yes, I have wished for the telephoto when photographing my daughter, but those moments have actually just pushed me towards using a real camera, which takes way better pictures than the iPhone 17 Pro anyways. The Air is Apple doing something hard, something beautiful, just because they can. It's the kind of risk that they have not taken on the iPhone in years, and I love it. I hope it's not the last of it. And rumors suggest that that isn't the case. Grade A minus for the iPhone, maybe even an A. It was an exceptional year. Bold moves, strong execution across the entire lineup, and a budget phone that actually succeeded in the market. The only thing that's missing is a foldable. And it's coming next year. The iPad lineup, well, that's in a weird place. The hardware has never been better, but the ecosystem around it remains frustratingly muddled. On one hand, the 11th generation base iPad finally makes sense. The 10th gen launched at $450 with that absurd Lightning to USB-C dongle situation. It was offensive. The 11th gen fixed both of those things. It dropped the MSRP to $350, but it's frequently on sale for as low as $250, and it's got USB-C throughout thanks to that new pencil. And the A16, it remains perfectly capable for what most iPad buyers actually do, which is watch YouTube and answer emails. It's no longer an insult. It's just a competent iPad at a good price. The iPad Air, that's where I start to lose the plot. At $600, it's theoretically the sensible middle ground, but I'm not really sure who it's for. It's got the same display resolution and brightness as the cheap iPad. Now, yes, it's laminated and has better color, but that's minor. It does support Apple Pencil Pro, which matters for artists, but it's stuck on the original Magic Keyboard, not the substantially better second generation version. And it's running the M3, which might be my least favorite, least efficient Apple Silicon chip. And having just been updated to the M3 this March, like this year, well, we're not going to see another refresh for a while. For $400 more, you get the iPad Pro with Thunderbolt, Face ID, vastly more RAM, Wi-Fi 7, better speakers, better cameras, the M5, and the tandem OLED that remains the best display I own, period. Now, I understand that's a lot more money, but the Air, it kind of feels like a compromise that doesn't quite know what it's compromising towards, where both the Pro and the base model seem well placed. So yeah, the M5 iPad Pro, it is freaking phenomenal hardware constrained by iPadOS yet again. The neural engine improvements over the M4 are substantial on paper. I showed this just recently, but they're practically meaningless when apps can't allocate enough memory to leverage them. iPadOS continues to prioritize system performance above all else, limiting what you can actually run, especially when multitasking. There's no swap in the way that macOS handles it. An M5 iPad Pro should be dramatically better than the M4 for pro workloads, but in practice, it's kind of not. More on that later. That's an iPadOS thing. And the iPad mini. It continues to be the neglected stepchild. At $500, it is overpriced for what it offers, and the next update is not rumored until 2027, with a ProMotion OLED that should have arrived years ago. Final grade, B. The base iPad is finally priced right. The Pro is incredible if iPadOS doesn't hold you back, and the Air exists for people who don't think too hard about value propositions. On to the Apple Watch. I'll keep this brief because, frankly, Apple did. The Apple Watch has one of the longest consumer replacement cycles in Apple's entire lineup. People buy one and they use it for years and years and years and years. And 2025 did little to change that. The Series 11 is fine. The Ultra 3 gains satellite connectivity, which does make complete sense for that brand and is genuinely useful for trail runners and hikers without their phones. And then the SE3, well, it's all new again, which means if you're going to buy one, now is the time. But the bigger story is one of stagnation. For the first time ever, Apple lost smartwatch market share in 2025. Now, they still dominate, but 2 consecutive years of declining sales suggest that something might be wrong. Garmin continues eating the high-end fitness market. Samsung, Huawei, and Xiaomi are gaining ground on the low end. And in iOS 26.3, Apple will comply with DMA requirements to allow notification forwarding for third-party wearables, not just in Europe, but globally. And that opens the door even wider for competitors, since health tracking, fitness, and notification display are overwhelmingly why people buy Apple Watches in the first place. Meanwhile, the actual fitness and health features, which are the primary reason to buy them, they've stalled. Competitors like Whoop have just owned the recovery space. Aura solved sleep tracking better years ago. Apple's version still feels very half-baked. They could be leading here. They should be. But they're choosing not to. C+. The Ultra and SE updates make this year better than last year's effective F, but Apple needs to remember why people buy these things. I did something this year I've never done with AirPods before. I didn't review them. Viewers have been asking me to review the AirPods Pro 3 for months, but honestly, I don't think one is coming because they're the most personal AirPods ever made. And as unhelpful as it is to say, well, you kind of just need to buy them and try them, you kind of do. The noise cancellation is exceptional, both active and passive. That new hybrid foam and silicone tip creates a passive seal so effective that someone could probably murder you and you wouldn't even notice. And then the ANC builds on that foundation substantially more to block out genuinely shocking amounts of sound. It's probably dangerous how much sound is blocked. The battery life is also substantially improved. My ears fatigue way before the AirPods die, which is the correct order of operations. But I'm kind of lukewarm on the rest. Those same foam tips that improve the seal, they also make the AirPods Pro 3 noticeably less comfortable for me than the Pro 2s. Even after months of training, I have never forgotten that they're in my ear. Not everyone is that way, and that's why, again, reviews are hard. Transparency mode, to me, feels more artificial, likely because the better passive seal forces heavier reliance on microphones. And the sound signature. Look, this is probably the most subjective thing of all, but the general audiophile consensus is disappointment. The Pro 2s were naturally tuned, and the Pro 3s, they're not. They have a V-shaped profile with boomy bass, fatiguing treble, and mids that just get buried, which is a bummer because they're honestly quite good. It's the Beats-ification of AirPods, and most people will honestly probably prefer it, but I absolutely do not. I miss my AirPods Pro 2 a lot, and I accidentally used them one time thinking they were the 3s, and I thought, holy crap, they fixed them. They fixed them in firmware, only to realize, oh yeah, no, those are my old AirPods, not the current ones. Also, can I just say, the accelerometer-based button on the case replacing the physical squeeze sucks. The AirPods 4, those remain solid and have been on sale for under $80, which is excellent. The AirPods Max, however, they should be discontinued. I mean, old chips, worse sound than the AirPods Pro. They're uncomfortable, they're heavy, they're unreliable. I've had mine replaced 4 times, and they are inexplicably expensive. Some Beats headphones, honestly, offer more features, better comfort, and a superior value to Apple's flagship over-ears, and that is just frankly embarrassing. It's gonna have to be a B- this year. The Pro 3 update is meaningful, but not universally better, and then the Max situation is just untenable. The updated M5 Vision Pro exists, primarily because Apple needed to stop using the M2 chips, not because the product was lined up for any real improvement. And I know this because none of the original Vision Pro's problems have been addressed. It's still heavy, it's still expensive, it still wastes weight and money on the external display that nobody asked for. The pass-through cameras, supposedly fundamental to spatial computing, received no meaningful upgrade, and they're not as impressive as they were a couple of years ago. Now, yes, the M5's image processing pipeline is theoretically enhanced, but even the most ardent Vision Pro defenders admit that the difference is subtle when it's noticeable at all. The problem is, like the app ecosystem that has somehow gotten even worse. The App Store is effectively dead. And when you ask enthusiasts, people that are like, the Vision Pro is the best thing I ever bought, I love it, the guys on Twitter, when you ask them what the killer app is, they'll tell you, Mac Virtual Display Mode. But if your best pitch for your $3,500 face computer is that it's a monitor for another computer, buddy, you're barking up the wrong tree. Then Apple shot their core audience in the foot by refusing M2 trade-ins. So the few people likely to upgrade to this new headset, existing owners, have even less incentive to do so. Used Vision Pros are now going for around $1,500 on eBay. That's massive depreciation. And honestly, at that price, it's a pretty good TV. That's mostly what I use mine for. Watching movies when my wife or baby is sleeping, and the occasional Mac display projection when I'm traveling without an external monitor. The 3D movie experience is honestly what is the best. It remains unmatched, and it is truly incredible. But I don't know if you noticed, 3D movies they're kind of passé. So content is limited, and I've seen most of the good stuff, which leaves watching 2D content on a virtual big screen. It is an amazing experience, but it's not $3,000 more amazing than cheaper XR glasses that you can get for $500-600. Even worse, the less expensive headset rumors, they've completely evaporated. All signs point to Apple's focus shifting towards meta-competing glasses, which makes questionable sense if they're running Vision OS, a platform designed for VR-first experiences. I did a whole video on that you can watch here. One genuine bright spot, the default strap. It no longer sucks. The new strap ships with the M5 and is available for $100 as an upgrade to older units, which honestly is worth every penny, even though I know that sounds like a lot. Hey, we're brainwashed. Small victories over here. Woohoo! Grade C. Vision OS remains thoughtfully designed, but the hardware story is disappointing, and the app ecosystem is approaching ghost town status. So yeah, that brings us to software, and this is where 2025 gets uncomfortable. Now, iOS 26 brought genuinely excellent features. Call screening has effectively eliminated spam calls from my life after years and years of torment. Hold Assist means that I can now do other things while waiting on the phone. You put me on hold, I'll get you right back. The redesigned camera app finally groups controls logically. The Photos app has the new library and collections tab rather than that big old list you had in iOS 18 that was a disaster. Preview on the iPhone finally does PDF editing properly, and scanning got moved out of files and notes where it never made sense into an app where it belongs. But Liquid Glass overshadows all of that. Conceptually, I don't hate it. Done well, it actually looks really cool. But the execution has problems that feel objectively bad. 2 X buttons side by side in Safari. Don't like it. iMessage backgrounds that are genuinely hideous. Don't like it. Icon tinting so ugly it seems like a joke. Don't love it. And that's to say nothing of the bugs. I mean, iOS 26, to be fair, in my opinion, is more stable than iOS 18's year-long buggy hellhole, but that's a low bar. The keyboard has gotten so unreliable, it's been caught in slow-motion video, not actually registering the keys you even press. Spotlight is weirdly slow. Safari has that maddening bug where it nukes your search term and you have to type it twice into the search bar. Those bugs will get slowly fixed, theoretically, and so too will Liquid Glass. It's not going anywhere. Neither did iOS 7 after its initial launch disaster, but both designers that made the thing got the boot and the world was better for it. Grade, B. iPadOS 26 surprised me. I mean, windowing is finally real. It works. It's powerful. Yeah, the learning curve is steep, arguably steeper than macOS for a complete beginner, but once you figure it out, the iPad becomes genuinely capable in ways that it just wasn't before. Apple listened even more to post-release feedback than they ever have before. I mean, slide over was missing all summer. It was requested all summer by people like me, and it only returned after public release complaints. But it returned. They listened. Better late than never. I'm using my iPad more than ever, and much of that is thanks to these changes. Grade B+. It's also thanks to the fact that macOS Tahoe frickin' sucks. Safari performance has gotten so bad that I downloaded a Chromium-based browser for the first time in 5 years. It's brave, and I don't think it's very good. I don't know why people love it. Liquid Glass looks copy-pasted from iOS without any adaptation at all for the desktop context. Finder has misaligned icons everywhere and zero contrast UI elements. The find bar in Safari is literally the same color background as the background. And 25 years of Mac tech debt is on full display, from the ancient Finder inspector to button alignment disasters in Calendar. It's like they copy-pasted the design and then did nothing else. Now, there are wins. The Spotlight redesign is genuinely useful. Clipboard history finally exists. Now bring it to iOS and the iPad. And Launchpad's removal is welcome, but the bugs and the visual disasters make this feel like a beta that shipped anyway. Not even a beta, an alpha. It's D. A D is generous. visionOS 26 is thoughtful and well-designed, despite everything that I said about the hardware. I'm going to give it an A-. WatchOS 26 is fine, B+. And tvOS 26 made both my Apple TVs laggy, and it introduces an infuriating AirPods audio compression bug that requires full reboots that's still not fixed in 26.2, and I'm gonna freaking lose my mind! C+. Overall software grade is gonna have to be a C+. The platforms that needed the most work got the least attention, and Liquid Glass, while not inherently bad, was rushed to market before it was ready, which is bad. So, listen up, parents. Let me tell you about your son, Tim Apple, and his $4 trillion company. The kid's doing fine. Better than fine in some areas, actually. His hardware work is excellent, top of his class. The iPhone Air project, it was bold, it was creative, it showed real initiative. That type of risk we just don't see taken by kids these days anymore. It was really good. And his Mac homework, it is consistently strong, even if he's neglected a few assignments here and there, particularly involving the Mac Pro. But who amongst us hasn't forgotten about the Mac Pro? The iPad is solid, but it is kind of neglected by its operating system, and that's what brings us to our concerns with Timmy. His software grades, they're slipping. That macOS Tahoe project was frankly unacceptable. It was buggy, it was visually inconsistent. It feels like he rushed it out the door. And Liquid Glass, it shows promise as a concept, but the execution needed another semester of refinement. And his Vision Pro extracurricular, he keeps showing up, but the other kids won't play with him. The app ecosystem is basically empty, and instead of addressing that, he's just like, glasses, and goes and does his own little weird thing in the corner. Look, Timmy's not failing. He's not even close to failing, but he is coasting a little bit, relying on his hardware talents while letting the software fundamentals slide. 2025 was a safe year for him. It was competent, reliable, and unlikely to get him grounded, but we know that he's capable of a little bit more. That said, I think he should retire and go play at the White House. Thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments which grade you most disagree with. I'm sure there will be opinions. Most importantly, and as always, stay snazzy. Happy holidays!